Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, the wildest mixed tag team in podcasting, where the kayfabe drops and the chaos takes over. Let's ring the damn bell.
Headlock tight, heels on the prowl, dropping elbows, you're in ground, feel the foul. No script here, just real, no bluff. Kayfabe crack, now the dirt gets rough. Headlocks, heels, havoc in the zone, stepping in the ring. Chaos is your home, no filters, no mask, just raw bare tone. Wrestling unscripted, we on the throne. Title belts, mic checks, crowd going crazy. Drop truth bombs, leaving lines feeling hazy. Beyond the kayfabe, past the charade, where legends are born and stories get made. Headlocks popping, who's hitting the mat? Welcome to the havoc where the real talk's at. Tune in, step through, leave the fake at the door. Headlocks, heels, havoc, now hear the roar.
Welcome to Headlocks, Heels, and Havoc, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, where we dive headfirst into the roughest, realest era of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Tonight, we're heading into Mid-South Wrestling, a territory forged in sweat, bruises, and pure grit. This was a place where toughness mattered more than flash. Promos came from the gut, and legends like the Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Bill Watts made wrestling feel painfully real. No shortcuts, no spectacle, just hard truths, hard hits, and stories that helped shape everything wrestling would become. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am one half of the greatest tag team in podcasting, the legend J-Mac. With me, as always, is everybody's favorite uncle and the man that's always ready for a hot tag, Uncle Slam.
What's up?
Now, before we dive deep into the Mid-South territory, we want to ask you to like, share, subscribe, and follow, and do all the things so that way we can help bring you more content. As I'm looking out my window and watching the start of Snowmageddon going on here. But yeah, if you don't care, get our name out there. Like I said, subscribe, share, and follow. Get us out there. So that way we can keep doing this for you. We enjoy doing it, and we love wrestling, and we love bringing you the content that we can.
It's already snowing over here.
Okay. Well, in saying that, I meant to ask you a question on the last recap episode, Uncle Slam, before we get into the Mid-South stuff.
Yes, sir.
I know we don't really cover this much, but the time to cover it. AFC NFC championship games. Who you got?
Let's see. It is the Seahawks versus the who are they playing against? And I know it's the Broncos versus the Pats, right?
Rams.
Okay, it's the Rams and Seahawks?
Rams and Seahawks.
Rams and Seahawks, I probably would go with Seattle. I kind of like them a little bit better. Plus, the Rams just won it not too long ago.
And then the Patriots Broncos.
With the Broncos losing their star quarterback, Bo Nix, it kind of looks like the Pats kind of got this in the bag. But anything can happen. A four-stringer can come in and win the game, because all he's got to do is win one game. 2 games, to win be a championship, or he's got to win one game. So,
all I'm going to say, as a New England Patriot fan, I'm never ever going to say the cat's in the bag. I said that once, the first time we played Eli Manning, and it ruined our perfect season.
I love that. Love it.
I didn't say it again when we played Eli Manning again, but that sumbitch come back and bit me in the ass again.
You were thinking it. That was the problem.
It was the curse of it. That's what it was. That's it. I was thinking there's no way he can beat us
again.
And then the only other 2 words I have for anybody that thinks things can't happen is Nick Foles.
Yes, sir.
All I'm gonna say to anybody is Nick Foles and that shitty ass Super Bowl. That was the worst Super Bowl
Uh,
ever.
that was the best I've ever seen. And just to shout out to Nick Foles, you'll never have to buy a drink in Philly again. Your glass will always be full. I promise you, brother.
It will. It definitely, most definitely will.
I promise you it will. Yeah.
I was like, man, out of anybody to beat us, it had to be Nick Foles.
I
Like I've
love
got
it.
like, and that's the crazy thing. And like I said, I ain't trying to get off into a football rant because we're going to look into Mid South here. But the crazy thing is like Tom Brady never got beat in the Super Bowl by anybody of big time recognition other than Eli Manning. And what did he get recognized for? For being Peyton's brother? I mean, other than beating Tom Brady, what did Eli Manning ever do besides an 8-8 season?
Well, hell,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. But Tom never won because there was a little thing called Spygate. You know what I'm saying? And that's probably how he knew every play the Eagles were going to run during the Super Bowl and countered it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know you don't. Y'all get
All
memory
these
loss. Y'all just
all
forget
these
about all that.
disproven
Oh, God.
conspiracy theories y'all got.
Conspiracy theories with you.
Disproven conspiracy theories.
Oh my God! I thought you were the king of the conspiracy theories. He's like, what? I don't believe in conspiracy theories. That don't even sound like me.
I don't know what you're talking about, man.
I bet you don't. I bet you don't.
Do nothing like that stuff, man. No, nothing. Never heard of a conspiracy. What's that? Oh man! But now getting into Mid-South wrestling. So I went and I've done some digging on this too, and it's really crazy some of the stuff that I pulled up and stuff about this. Like Mid-South was really a huge territory that people don't.
Yeah, like they incorporated. I think it was was it 4 or 5 states and shit, and big states too. Like I mean, they had a.
That it was, let's see, I've got it right here exactly how many states they were in.
Oklahoma, Arkansas.
They had Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, parts of Alabama, and parts of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
They were syndicated across the southern U.S., aired weekly, often taped in front of a live studio audience, and known for their strong local TV ratings in the early to mid 1980s. So, just a few facts about Mid-South Wrestling. They were founded in 1979, rebranded in 1986 as Universal Wrestling Federation. Now, this was the second attempt at a UWF. Yeah. The UWF I've talked to you about doing a little profile on is the Herb Abrams UWF.
Okay, yeah.
They were founded by former wrestler, promoter, and one of the toughest bookers ever, Bill Watts, who's been also known to be kind of controversial in his own right. We'll just go ahead and put that out there. The headquarters for Mid-South / the UWF was Shreveport, Louisiana. We touched on their territories already. Let's see. The style and reputation was known for a realistic, hard-hitting, no-nonsense style. Heavy emphasis on believable promos, clean baby faces versus heel dynamics, athletic physical matches, minimal comedy, personal and violent, and one of the most respected territories among wrestlers. Legendary talent developed or featured was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase, Junkyard Dog, Sting, Rick Steiner, Booker T, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the Morning Gang, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Terry Taylor, also known as the Red Rooster. Unfortunately, he has that moniker. Dr. Death Steve Williams and Kamala. And going back to Terry Taylor was a good wrestler. I think he could have been a good mid-card guy in another, place had he not been given that stupid rooster thing. It was terrible. Here. The fun fact that I run across was that Sting had his first major singles run in the
I saw that. Yeah, I was kind of shocked about that. Like I said, like I love learning stuff like that. Like little facts that I didn't know and shit.
Yep. Their major championships were the Mid-South Heavyweight Championship, which later became the UWF World Championship. Their top title of the territory was held by the likes of Ted DiBiase, Junkyard Dog, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Dirty Dick Murdoch, and several others. The Mid-South North American Championship was their secondary title, often used to build future main eventers. So basically, their Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah.
Mid-South Tag Team Championship, one of the most respected tag team titles of the era, dominated by, can you guess?
The Von Erichs.
Both Expresses. And the Midnight.
No surprise, no surprise.
Let's see some of the notable feuds from I keep wanting to call them the UWF. From Mid-South is the Junkyard Dog versus Ted DiBiase. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Ted DiBiase. Of course, is probably the birth of the Midnight versus the Rock and Roll. Dr. Death Steve Williams versus Terry Bam Bam Gordy. So this was before they were a tag team and friendly with each other. I can never remember the name of their tag team, but man, they were a damn good tag team.
Yeah, I don't think people. I think they get like underestimated a lot because if you sit and think about it, just the little names that we've named, they've laid such a huge foundation for other wrestling organizations that kind of benefited from them or whatever, like WWE or WCW and shit. Because man, the names you listed were just a small list, but they keep going and going. Like if you like you look it up.
Oh yeah, Rick Rude. There's several names, like you said. The list goes on and on. And it's funny you said that about the historical impact because that was the next facts that were coming up. One of the last territories to seriously challenge WWF and WCW dominance. They were the early adopter of the national level presentation, strong TV storytelling, sports-based realism, direct influence on ECW's gritty style, modern work rate athleticism promotions, different things like that. Their decline and end came from financial strain from national expansion, competition with WWF's cable takeover. So they sold to Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA in 1987. UWF brand absorbed and eventually dissolved by the Jim Crockett Promotions. Legendary facts frequently cited by wrestlers as the best territory to learn psychology. Bill Watts is considered a genius booker, but he was extremely strict, and he was old school to a fault. I don't know what that means, but there are also, the thing that kills me about the rumors about Bill Watts are kind of the same things that kill me about the rumors about JR. And I don't want to discount anybody's experience. Yeah. I'm not saying, anybody's right or anybody's wrong. For somebody who gained a reputation of having a certain reputation, he was very big on pushing like black talent. Like people don't understand Mid South. JYD was their Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He was bigger than a lot of. Like I read that he was bigger than Peyton Manning. I think they had like a career. It wasn't a career day, but like a hero day. It was like Peyton Manning's father, Archie Manning, and some other like Olympian. And nobody gave a shit about them. All they cared about was JYD.
Yeah, that's how that's how he was huge down there. Now they said that by the time that JYD got to the WWF and WCW, he had kind of said, F it and had letting his demons gotten to him.
Yeah,
But I mean, you think about that. Like JYD was always a big, star.
yeah.
But I never thought that JYD was ever going to win the world title.
Not in
And
the
it,
WWE. Yeah, I just didn't see it. Now I could see him in other promotions, but
I didn't see him beating Ric Flair when he went over there and was had a little rivalry with Rick. And a lot of people said the reason he didn't win it was because of the fact that 5 minutes in he was gassed out.
yeah,
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to throw any bad, juju or whatever on anybody's name who's not alive to defend himself, but it's just what I've heard and everything. But like my thing with it is like even in other promotions, I never saw him as being like the world champion. I saw him being like a tough competitor that could compete with the world champion,
hmm
but like the guy that just never got over and won it. He was always cheated out of it or whatever. They pulled the tights or, used a pair of brass knuckles, something like that.
yeah,
But like to look into this stuff though and see that like at the time he was their world champion. He was their top draw, and then to think that like Ted DiBiase was involved in that mix too and everything, it's just like and we're not talking $1 million man Ted DiBiase. We're talking just Ted DiBiase,
yeah.
So it's like it's crazy to go back and look at this stuff. So like did you come across any matches or feuds or anything that kind of stood out to you?
Man, like doing research, like I said, of course, JYD was a big one. Magnum TA, Doctor Death, Steve Williams, like anything with Doctor Death, Steve Williams was kind of big for me or whatever. Like when I was doing my research or whatever, I would say those would probably be the main ones. But like I said, I mean, there was just so many people, like it's almost hard to keep up with and stuff. And there's just so much video. I mean, YouTube has a very large collection of matches that goes by years. Like you can look up 1985, you can look up 87. I mean, and it just goes on and on. So, which is kind of a blessing. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot to choose from. Um, I don't have one particular match that I can say like it's my favorite, but I would probably say more. I like more or less people. You know what I'm saying? Like probably Doctor Death would probably have to be my favorite. Like him and JYD from Mid South. Like if I had to pick anybody, because JYD was that guy or whatever. You know, what I'm saying he could he could talk the talk. He was a big dude and he was he was very believable. Doctor Death was just intimidating and shit, man. I mean, I think he's probably got one of the coolest nicknames. I mean, like nicknames ever and shit, or whatever. Doctor Death. I
Right.
mean, that's just dope as hell.
What's this mean? You know what I'm saying? Just the name alone makes you ask questions.
Yeah,
Like,
it just sounds like a wrestling fan. Call me Doctor Death, Steve.
right.
Williams.
Well, and like we discussed off air, a lot of people don't know this, but Dr. Death Steve Williams is the reason why we got Steve Austin.
Oh yeah, you might
Because
want to share that story.
Okay, so like Steve Austin went in. The story I heard, read actually, was that Steve Austin went into, and I believe it was from Steve himself. Um, Steve's real name is Steve Williams, same as Dr. Death. Well, his very first booking, he went to go up to the booker and say, "Hey, I'm Steve Williams and everything." He's like, "Hey, great kid, what name are you wrestling under?" And he was like, "I guess Steve Williams." He was like, "Well, you can't use that name because we already got somebody by that name." Dr. Death Steve Williams. So Stone Cold had to go. Well, he wasn't Stone Cold at that time, but he had to go, and he had like 15 minutes. The guy told him to come up with a name. So he was like stressing, trying to get ready, and like all he could think was, who is the toughest SOB I can think of? And he said that the $6 million man, Steve Austin, was the toughest guy he could think of off of TV at the time. So that's whose name he went with, was Steve Austin. I was like, and so a legend was born.
Exactly.
It's just crazy how, like, like you were touching on earlier, just the impact that Mid South had that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
It's just small things like that you never even realize. I don't know. It's crazy.
Now, do you think Mid South was actually a real challenge to the WWE back in the day, or like, do you see them more as that smaller promotion that was just had big dreams?
Excuse me.
Because back then there was pretty much, I think there was still they still had the territories, but they had kind of like a big three. They had up north they had WWE, they had Mid South, and then they had Jim Crockett's promotion or whatever.
And you had the WCCW, the Von Erich territory
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Honestly and truthfully, I think what killed both WCCW and I think it killed everybody that didn't survive was the fact that they were too late in the game at cable expansion. Vince seen it on the horizon and started chasing it.
Mm.
I think Vince got a head start as far as the foot race to it. Jim Crockett Promotions seen what Vince was doing and was like, well, let us try to do this, but we're going to do it our way. Yeah. And instead of big production, big value, it was more. I don't want to say it killed it because there is a fan base for it, but on a national scale, I don't think the whole nation was ready for Southern wrestling as much as they were ready for the WWE style of wrestling or WWF at the time.
The more character driven, the more
over the top
Hollywood, the more lavish spectacle. As far as WCW was just more about wrestling. You kind of let your actions speak for you, like in the ring. You didn't. Where the WWE or WWF at the time was more about interesting characters. You got a dead man, you got a freaking monster here and stuff like that.
I felt like the NWA / WCW up until like Bischoff got there and stuff and everything and started spending a little bit more money. I don't think they really cared about like the production value of dressing up the arena.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, let's have a couple of banners made for the pay-per-view and we'll drop a curtain and then we'll put the banner in front of the curtain. You know what I mean? There was no I don't, it just felt like they were trying to stay too far behind. and it was that was even in like the early '90s. You know what I'm saying? That you can tell the production value was so much different between what the WWF was doing and what WCW was doing.
Do you think it was done intentionally just to be different, to be like, okay, we're not like WWF, or I mean WWE, whatever you want to call it. We're not that big spectacle. We're real. We're more realistic.
To an extent, yes, and I think it was deliberately done it was to the detriment, but I don't think that they realized it was to the detriment. They were just trying to hold true to the Southern wrestling roots.
Mm.
We're, you know, well, like, Mid South, like I said, sweat, bruise, and pure grit. It's not about, the flashy entrances and, because think about it, what was the big flashy, even into the early '90s, up until maybe like even the mid '90s, like the big entrance stuff was some smoke and some sparklers.
Yeah, like the biggest intro was like Ric Flair and which robe he was wearing and shit. That was the
Right.
glitz and glare. You know what I'm saying? It was, they might decorate the stage a little bit, but it was still kind of bare bones. We're just coming in to wrestle type shit.
Might have a small bit of pyro falling
Yeah,
from the thing that you got to walk
exactly.
through or something.
Exactly.
But other
It
than
wasn't a
that,
big production.
right.
It wasn't a Hollywood production and shit.
And
Like,
I think that, going back to your original question though, I think that's what hurt Mid South is, I think, Watts' style could have worked, and I think it could have competed. I just think Watts and a couple other places like WCW, they just were too late to the table trying to go national.
or do you think
Vince,
they kind of just stuck with their fan base because their bread and butter was Southern wrestling, which is a certain kind of style compared to say what they do up north or whether they do out west? Do you
they
think that
did.
they were, like you said, and it kind of makes sense, they were late to the party because they were sticking to what their fans liked instead of kind of doing with everybody else in the United States might like?
I 100% agree with what you said right there. They didn't expand. That's the reason why they didn't expand, because they knew they had this right here.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we got this right here, we don't need all this other out here. But the problem was all that other out there allowed the WWE, and for a short amount of time, the NWA/WCW to eat all that other up.
Yeah.
And when they ate all that other up, there was nowhere to
They
expand
left too
because
much on the table and they took it all. Shit. They were like, shit.
nobody, it was like, okay, you're not going to do it. Well, we're going to do it. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to take your cable into, Arizona, because that's honestly and truthfully one thing that I do remember about the Fritz Von Erich and the WCCW was that they tried to get him to go national. And he was like, no, I don't want to do it. We're a territory. We're not, because he was still stuck in that old school territory way of I'm not going to step on anybody else's toes. And could you imagine if, Fritz had taken the Von Erichs into like, Arizona, Southern California,
Yeah.
Not that they didn't go there and didn't get exposure there, because they did, because they were part of the NWA system. But when you're going over into a national cable audience and you've already got that established, oh, well, we're there in Southern California. They know who
Yeah.
we are. And what's in Southern California? Los Angeles, San Diego, some of the bigger, money making cities in California.
And I think that's kind of just like Texas too and stuff. And like states like Texas and California, like you can be successful and make a good living just touring your states, like where they have such big cities. Like, for example, just like you said, they got San Diego, they got Los Angeles, they got Sacramento, they got San Francisco. You can go through all and other places. And same thing in Texas. You got Austin, you got a San Antonio, you got a Houston, you got Dallas, you got all these big ass cities that like in one aspect, it's like you can still make a good living and be successful, even though you're not national in a national sense, and make good money just living in your state because those states are so huge and they have so many people and they have so many big cities. But I get it, you kind of pigeonhole yourself by just being, I'm just that big guy. It's kind of like the big fish in a little pond instead of being a little fish in a big pond type deal. Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying?
And I think that's exactly what they did. They pigeonholed themselves until it was too late. Everybody either wanted WWF because they waited they waited too long to jump on the boat, and by that time it was either Hulkamania and WWF
Mm-hmm.
or Southern Wrestling and Ric Flair
Yep.
and the Horsemen.
Yep.
The country literally got divided
Oh, hell yeah.
in the especially the late '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Once Hulkamania was really had its stronghold going on, you could find everybody knew who Hulk Hogan was, but that doesn't mean everybody was a Hulk Hogan fan. Especially
Exactly.
people that I knew, like my aunt and uncle and everything, they would always, harass me about all that. They ain't real wrestlers. That Macho Man's got a better body than Hulk Hogan does,
Mm-hmm.
blah, 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 all this other stuff and everything. But they would be like, back in my day. And I remember they would mention, some of the Mid South Territory people. I never knew at the time, because it wasn't readily available. I didn't know. All I knew is that Ric Flair was the NWA champion. So that was NWA wrestling.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was a territory system, where okay, yeah, he's the NWA champion, but he was wrestling in the Mid South, territory when he was wrestling Junkyard Dog, just
Yeah.
for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that whenever he went to Florida, he was wrestling in the Florida Championship Wrestling territory. It's like it was funny because like they would be mentioning people, and I'm trying to piece all this together, and it's crazy trying to go back and piece it all together of what became what. What territory didn't get assimilated into another company. One territory just completely got dissolved,
Yeah.
completely just done away with. Stuff like that is like it's been interesting. That's why I've really pushed for like territory episodes and everything because there's a lot of territories that like we don't think about that people have wrestled in. Like the Portland territory.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get off from
Mid-South.
Mid South, but it just goes to show you how much history there is, and it's as much of it as is a collective history. It's also its own independent history. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Yeah.
Portland territory has its own independent history, but it plays a part in the overall history of professional wrestling. Mid
Yeah.
South, blah blah blah.
Yeah. And I think it's important, what I'm saying? I know it sounds cliche, but it's like you got to know your history to know your future. And I think you got to know about the older generation of wrestling and how stuff was and began and, what they went through so that you can kind of learn from that and maybe not make the same mistakes or, just build on it in general. And I think some organizations are kind of good at doing that. WWE being one of those and stuff. They've learned from past and mistakes, and I guess it helps having a second generation, owner, Vince, senior, and then Vince Jr. or whatever. It definitely shows. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can tell.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that he watched his dad run the show, so he
Mhm.
knew how to deal with the talent and what talent you don't piss off, what talent you do piss off. I think he learned that real quick about Andre.
Oh yeah.
Andre's the one guy you just don't make mad for any reason. But no, what all you got on Mid South? I'll let you take it for a second.
Let me see. Like you said, let me get on my notes here. Shit. Uh, I'm on the phone. I'm doing something right now, honey. Just text me.
Was it
Uh,
Sarah?
children. You know how children are.
Did she say, "Do you love me?"
Yeah, which means she wants something.
Uh,
Oh, God.
you gotta
My
love
bad.
the
Okay,
kid.
let me focus here
Oh,
since my child
they
obviously.
doesn't say my bad about.
Uh,
She's welcome to make her cameo appearances.
yeah, I bet she would if she could too. Let's see. Let me see what I got. Hold on. I gotta find my notes here. I had them and then I clicked on some other stuff. Um, Let me see. As far as Mid South, I actually didn't know a ton about them until I what was it? I saw maybe a clip on Facebook or like YouTube, and it started listing like a lot of the people that were part of it, or all the people that came from it, and that's what really probably I'd say piqued my interest, and it just got me thinking about all these people came from this one organization. This organization must be pretty damn good to develop this many people, and like then when you start digging a little more, like you research and you find out the beginning of everything, how everything started, like how everybody you know basically like starting a wrestling organization that was trying to compete with the WW, that was trying to get on the same level, but like you said, obviously dropped the ball because they didn't make it. They're obviously not here anymore. But I mean, they've done so much. Like I said, I mean, because just all the like I said, I mean, I was watching some of their matches, like doing research, and I felt almost like I did today watching matches. Like I was invested in it. Like I was interested to see who was going to win and then who was going to lose and stuff. Like
It was
and
stuff you'd never seen.
yeah, and and I know it's not the same production quality as like what we have now, but the stories are still good. Like they're still relevant. Like they're still getting my attention. Like I still want to know like if so and so is going to win. Like if like if they're going to be a heel turn and stuff. Uh, which kind of shocked me. Like I said, I really didn't think. I thought it'd just be like me basically just doing research, but I actually gave a damn about when I was watching these matches. Now that could just be the wrestling fan in me, but I think it's more that I think it just shows to the longevity of a wrestling organization like that. Um, Unfortunately, like we don't have them around anymore to kind of speak for themselves, but like we do have a lot of video. There's a lot of research and there's a lot of material, and I think anybody that's a historian or a fan to like go give it a watch. Like you don't have to watch everything, but just sit down and watch like a couple matches and stuff, and like you'll be intrigued. Like people like Magnum TA, what I'm saying, that was supposed to be like the next Hulk Hogan, was supposed to be the next big thing, and you see why he was so big. You see why people were drawn to Doctor Death and stuff, or you see why people love JYD or Jake the Snake or Ted DiBiase was so good or whatever. And I agree because, like they said, they were one of the best people at developing the psychology of wrestling. And when you think of people like Jake the Snake, who could just in a promo could get so much heat and barely say anything, or Ted DiBiase just walking in with that laugh and people hating him. All that is
Yep.
just psychology of wrestling and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like all that shit. You know, like and I've just learned just a little bit just from some of the people we've talked to or whatever. But I think that right there just kind of proves that how like how great they were, because like I said, I mean, those are just two examples, and I can give probably 10 more people that are probably some of the best heels. You know, like I said, you had people like Andre. Andre was there. Andre the Giant,
Excuse me.
Tony Atlas. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
For who else? Let's see. Nick
Name them
Bockwinkel,
off.
obviously. Bruiser Brody. You know, I mean,
Yes.
he's a legend in itself. I mean, we've like, did we
I
do a video on him?
we haven't, but I've been wanting to do one about the
Yeah.
death of Bruiser Brody and everything. But the thing that kills me is I seen this video. Not to interrupt the list you're telling.
No, you're good.
I seen a thing that said, "I challenge." I think it was JBL telling the story, but he said, "I challenge anybody to go back in time and sit live." And sit in a match between Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen and tell me that they're not going to sit in that crowd and go, even if they're the biggest skeptic in the world, you know, and they think this is the biggest bunch of bull crap in the
Yeah.
world. He said they're going to sit in that crowd and look at that guy that next to them and go, I don't know, man. I think this might be a real. They might really hate each other or something. You know, he
Yeah.
said because it was that hard hitting. They
Yeah.
went out there to make it look real, like it was a real fight.
That's like I was watching, who was it? Carmelo Hayes versus, I always want to say Drago. I don't think that's it or whatever.
Dragunov.
Dragunov or whatever. And they were chopping the shit out of each other. I mean, chopping the shit. And that ain't shit compared to Bruiser Brody and them. That it ain't even close.
Well,
Like the chop.
It's
Go
like
ahead.
they do the chop just for the
Sound effect.
the effect of it.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds good, blah blah blah. It's not something, you know, but like, man, Bruiser and them, yeah, they would chop you, but like the Undertaker said, the chop is overused now. It's way overused and it's done for the effect. It's kind of like the slapping of the leg. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you do
To the super kick, it's definitely
Yes.
a little overused.
Yes. And it's like, you know, when Sean started doing it to give the extra sound, it was, you know, kind of cool because it made the effect sound a little bit better. But then everybody started using it, so Vince ended up banning it. But they getting back to what I was saying, you know, Bruiser and them, they would literally, you know, they may chop you a few times and you knew you got chopped, but they weren't going to chop you 30 times in a match. But that big boot that you were going to take off the ropes, your head was going to be turned a little bit from that boot. You may not get the full force of a regular, you know, Bruiser Brody really kicking you in the head boot, but you're probably going to get at least a quarter of it. So you might as well prepare for that.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it was just that's what they learned in Mid South.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, and that's why they were so successful in Mid South, was because it was so realistic. It was realistic wrestling. You know, they didn't need, and that's maybe that's something that even as fans we're missing, is they didn't need the lights and glitz and glamour to be relevant.
Well, like if you look at some of the people that are on the list, like and I'll read a couple, like a lot of these people don't have a bunch of flash to them. You know, like okay, we got the Barbarian, not a bunch of flash there. You know, Tully Blanchard, not a lot of flash there either. Good wrestler and shit. You know, you got Jim Cornette, not a lot of flash. You know, a lot of mouth. Ted DiBiase, not a lot of flash. Like all these guys are great wrestlers. Bobby Eaton, not a lot of flash, but great fucking wrestlers. Great fucking wrestlers, like solid, fundamental, knew how to do a match and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like Chavo Guerrero, Hector Guerrero. I mean, like all these guys are like, they don't have the huge
They
production.
had
They
the
don't have
gobbledygooker.
yeah, they don't have a gobbledygooker. They're not wearing a big shiny robe. They don't have a fucking giant American flag, and they don't rip off their t-shirts. They just come down in some black trunks or whatever they got. They get in the ring and they whoop ass.
Yep.
Like there's a certain almost style to people that come from mid South or whatever. Like you said, they're not the big production. They're solid wrestlers who know how to work a match. They're great at psychology or whatever.
So let me ask you this, and I'll just use Ted DiBiase as the main example.
Yeah.
So like, you look at Ted DiBiase in Mid South, you see him wearing like the blue trunks. Looks like just a regular everyday wrestler.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think his biggest accessory was he wore like a fingerless glove on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think that was in like tribute to his dad, Iron Mike DiBiase. So my question is you look at him there, and you look at what his style was, how he was just a technical wrestler, he was a good wrestler, blah blah blah, hard nosed guy was his profile. Flip him over to the WWE and turn him into the $1 Million Man.
Yeah.
Which I always felt the WWE turning him into the $1 Million Man was kind of their kind of poke at Ric Flair.
You think so?
Yeah. I think that they were trying to emulate a Ric Flair type, flashy.
Rich guy, flash, have everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to emulate.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But you go from that to that, and no doubt, that Ted DiBiase is very proud of his work as the $1 Million Man because he did a great job.
Yeah.
He did so great, in fact, that I think he deserved to beat Hulk Hogan cleanly for the world title, even if it was just from like a pay-per-view to a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He's one of my favorite heels.
Yes, he was great. And because he was just so good at making you hate him. You know what I'm saying? He was 2 or 3 lines of doing a promo, and you were already like, I'm sick of this guy, man. Fuck him. But do you think that maybe he looks back and goes, because the $1 Million Man was so character driven, do you think maybe he looks back on his work as just Ted DiBiase and like Mid South and stuff as maybe more important in his career, or holds a better spot? I know he's not here to speak for himself.
Do you think that it holds more weight than
to himself,
like his WWE run or whatever?
Right, because it was so much of him just being him instead of him being, in this character that was, Vince had a plan, and that plan was not for him to ever be the world champion.
Definitely,
his plan was to be a very big, very believable foe to the world champion. The Lex Luthor to Superman.
Yes.
But
definitely.
he was never able to defeat Superman.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So he would try to buy his way into being Superman and stuff like that.
Now, honestly, only he can really answer that question, like whether it carries more weight. Now, like if you're asking my opinion on like if I think that like one portion of his career was better than the other, I can only really say from the WWE perspective because doing research, like I did watch some of his matches, but I didn't watch a ton. I know him more as the $1 Million Man, as the giant heel in WWE than I do as far as Mid South. So I'm a little partial there as far as my perspective. Um, but he's a legendary character, so I don't know. Like I said, I think he got to do more creatively, probably in Mid South, but he probably made more money in WWE, or
Right.
he had more exposure.
Not saying
So
he begrudges the Million
yeah,
Dollar
yeah,
Man
yeah.
character.
No, no, no. Unfortunately, when you work with Vince, like unless you can prove to him, that this gimmick's going to work, and I think at that time, I don't know if Vince was that reasonable about shit. He kind of like shit his way. That, like I said, I don't have a problem with either one. Honestly, like I said, I I feel like he might have had more fun, like in the younger days, because he probably got to do a lot more of what he wanted instead of what somebody else wanted. But like I said, if he's still getting checks and he's still known
Right.
universally, then he's probably not upset about that either. But I mean, like I said, that's really something that only he can answer. As a fan, I liked him more in the WWE because that's what I grew up seeing him as, and I didn't watch him in Mid South until I'm a 40-year-old man.
Right. I
So
think for me, like, because I'm the same way as you, my biggest exposure to him was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Honestly, had no clue who he was before he came to the WWE. Didn't know he had been in other organizations and stuff and everything. But like, I don't know if it's just me, but like, as a fan, maybe I don't know, and maybe turning into kind of an analyst and everything, doing the show and stuff. I have an easy time separating the two, if
mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like, I have an easy time separating the $1 Million Man character he played in the WWE with the Ted DiBiase character he was doing in Mid South,
yeah,
and respecting both of them for what he was doing, if that makes sense. And
yeah,
and not just him, but with a lot of other people too. Like, unfortunately, when I really caught the crap end of JYD's career,
yeah. See, like
so I
that's what I feel like too. Like I feel like when he came, like when I saw in the WWE that it was on his going down, as far as his
yes,
career, like he
he was
wasn't,
going downhill slide.
yeah, like he wasn't the same guy as he was before, or unless I didn't get to see him in his, in his prime like I wanted to.
Like, the name was there because the pops were there,
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
WrestleManias and stuff and everything that he,
Yeah. The WrestleManias, the cartoons, the
right,
action figures. Yeah, all that was there.
because he was a big part of the Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling show. I can't remember who it was that done his voice. I want to say it's what's his name, Uncle Phil, done the voice of
Oh,
JYD
okay.
of the show. James Avery, yeah, couldn't
Mhm.
think of his name for a second, but I feel the same way. I feel like that we didn't get to see, and that's the cool thing about having these vintage libraries, which they need to make sure they're preserving.
Yeah.
I don't care where they put them. Don't charge people for them. Just put them somewhere. It's old. You know what I'm
Is there a
saying?
wrestling hall of fame that for like all wrestling, like pro wrestling, not just the WWE? Maybe like a magazine or something, or something that would like actually could preserve all these, like if put them in a vault somewhere. So
I think with the licensing and stuff like that, where
Yeah.
WWE owns the rights to it, they would have to donate it to the
Okay.
Hall of
Okay.
Fame. You know
True.
what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know that they would want to sign their actual rights over to it because then they wouldn't be able to make money off of it.
That's
And
true.
that's the thing, though. I mean, like I said, go back and watch this stuff because, like I said earlier, JYD was Mid South Hulk Hogan. I never seen JYD as a Hulk Hogan type stature. I saw
Uh-huh.
him as cool as shit. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the
Yeah.
good, good guys. I don't ever remember JYD being a bad guy or anything like that. But doing my research, the biggest, I guess, I was listening to JR, and because I know JR, worked Mid South and everything as a commentator too, so he knew a lot about what was going on there at the time. So I was listening to him, and he was talking about one of the biggest uh, promos. What am I talking about? Lord, it just went pew. One of the biggest stories that JYD was in was
Yeah.
when he got blinded.
Oh, okay.
And this was at the height of JYD being the Hulk Hogan type figure. And I'm like, I need to go back and watch this because people were pissed.
Yeah.
People were throwing batteries at people and everything because you blinded their hero. You know what I'm saying? And people don't realize either. Look at the states we named off in that. We were talking about what? Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Arkansas.
So
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? These were not even in the 80s and a little bit before. These were not the most racially sensitive states. So to have a black man at that stature, like you said, he was, what was it, Peyton Manning and other people,
Olympic athlete. I forgot what the Olympic
yeah.
athlete.
But he had stature that, you know, maybe in a subtle way help people realize that, what's so wrong about me liking this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, bridge, you never know what that brought on into people's mind. But at the end of the day, how many people who have racist thoughts were rooting for the junkyard dog? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's cool. I think it's awesome, but I also think it's cool that we got that footage that we can go back and watch this stuff. So
Hmm.
it's like, I've made it a point that I've got a little post-it note to go back and watch the JYD being blinded stuff and everything. Just I want to see the promos because Jim Ross was talking it up that the promos were real emotional and stuff like that and everything. I'm like, well, hell, I want to see this then. It's just I just think it's cool that you can go back and watch this stuff because
Yeah.
again, so many people like I was thinking about it. We was talking about the downhill slide of JYD that we got to see.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is like we also got to see the prime of Rick Rude. But how cool is it that you can go back and watch the young Rick Rude?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, like it's just a young Magnum TA when he was first breaking in and stuff. It's cool that this footage is preserved. They just need to not sit and put it on some app to where they're going to charge people for it. It's just,
Unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
mm-hmm.
You gotta tax you for everything, monetize everything.
So as far as like Mid South, like, would you say that where would you rank them? Again, 1 out of 10 one being the least, 10 being the best. Where would you rank them as far as like, we'll do a two-part question. Where
All
would
right.
you rank them as far as importance in the history of wrestling? And where would you rank them as far as competition during their time?
Um, in their time, I would rate them, like I said, because to me there was only a couple. I think it was maybe like four really big promotions, and I feel like they were the prime competitors to a WWE. Like I said, they were just a little late as far as, like you said, television rights and getting TV time. Um, I would put them on par with like a Jim Crockett promotion or something like that. Like I said, I would put them a strong number two. You know, like if I was going to be like Pepsi and Coke, I would put them in the Pepsi. You know, tied with Dr Pepper or whatever you want to call it.
All right.
Um, and then what was the other part of
That
it? Like
wasn't a plug for where somebody works or nothing.
there ain't no plug there, no shameless promotion.
Oh, hey man! As a matter of fact, if they want us to sponsor them, I will happily not
Convert.
drink. I will not drink this during our shows. I'm not saying I won't drink it at all, but I won't drink it during our shows.
Okay. Now, okay. Like one part was like talking about like where do I
Their
rank them,
competitiveness,
and then the other part was about what now?
where they stand in history, where Mid South stands in history, like as far as 10
Important.
being really important and one being not very important.
Um, I would go probably like maybe let me see. Obviously, they're not going to be a 10, but they're not going to be a 1. I want to get, part of me wants to give them a little higher than like a 5, just because of all the talent that came from it as far as managers and Jim Ross and Magnum TA and everybody. So I'm going to go like a 6.5 because, like I said, I don't think that I feel like they have an impact on wrestling history as far as all the talent that came from them, and they're as far as being good about psychology of wrestling and a lot of good people learning from them, but they're not like a McMahon as far as bringing wrestling into the next generation. For their time, they were great, but in the histories of wrestling or pro wrestling, I would probably put them at, like I said, probably around a 6.5, something like that.
So what was it? It said 79 was when they were formed, and then what, it was around 88 that they were sold to
I think
Cross.
I think they ran what maybe to like 85, 86, something like that.
Oh, let me see here. Go back into the. Let's see. 79 is when they were founded, rebranded as UWF in 86. And then, let's see, got it here somewhere. Sold to Jim Crockett Promotions in 87.
Okay.
So just under 10 years as a promotion.
Yeah.
So 8 years as a promotion and had that much talent and him. See, I was going to say as far as impact on the historical value of wrestling, I was going to give them about a 7.5, just because of the talent alone.
Yeah.
But then, and that's again not just the in-ring talent, the talent of
Yeah, because you got Jim Cornette, you got Jim Ross. I mean, not just managers and commentators. I mean, wrestlers. Like, definitely a watershed.
So on that front, I'm gonna give them a 7.5 as far as historical value. Now, as far as like their competitiveness during that time, it's hard because, like I said, at the time that they were live going and stuff like that, I didn't get anything as far as UWF, Mid South. I didn't get any of that stuff. The
Yeah.
only thing I got was what came on Superstation TBS with as far as NWA product.
Yeah.
If they showed it on there, then I saw it.
Yeah.
If they didn't show it, I didn't see it. And mostly on there, it was the Horsemen and the Rock and Roll and the Midnight, the staples.
Yes.
So, like, and then other than that was the WWF. That's all, that there was available in my. I know, like, around Danville, Kentucky, um, back in the day, you could sometimes, I can't remember what channel, but you could sometimes pick up Memphis wrestling if you
Okay.
had a good enough antenna. But other than that, in Danville, you could pick up Fox 41 out of Louisville. So sometimes you'd pick up some wrestling out of Indiana or something. But the two big options whenever I was a kid was WWF and whatever TBS was showing as
Yeah.
far as NWA product.
Mine's
So
pretty much the same. Yeah.
So right, so I can't say much about the
Well, I did have Ring of
competition,
Honor too. I'm
right?
pretty sure Ring of Honor was there also.
But like, I can't say much about what was going on as far as competition wise, because the only competition that I knew of was the NWA.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't see them as any kind of competition. I knew who Ric Flair was, but okay, this is some wrestling to put on while I'm playing with my GI Joes. You
Yeah.
know, this wasn't Saturday morning. I'm sitting in front of the TV with my bowl of cereal, eyes glued to the TV to see who's coming out next because it's WWF superstars.
Exactly.
There was, and it's as an older fan, I've grown to like going back and watching that grittier style of wrestling
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that it's not overblown with production and stuff like that, which is
Yeah.
a lot of the reasons why I like the independents a lot more too. But like, so getting back to the question, sorry, I'm going off on a rant here. Um, I don't, I can't really speak too much on the competition as far as like from a personal standpoint that I was there,
Mm-hmm.
but just going back and looking, you know, if it hadn't been for the fact that them and the WCCW, this is just my take, didn't jump on the cable bandwagon the same way that Crockett and Vince did. And Vince even done it better than Crockett did.
Yeah.
But the only thing that kind of saved Crockett was the fact that TBS was a cable network. So, you know what I'm saying? And Turner wanted TBS or wanted wrestling on his network.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think that's the biggest thing is from what I've read, the competition was there. It was just a matter of taking it national, and they didn't want to do it. Vince did. He said, "F this territory shit." There's money to be made in California. You
Well,
know,
Vince
so
wanted world domination and shit. Like when he bought his dad's company, like he famously said, he told his dad, like, either you're gonna do it my way or or else you're gonna get the hell out of the way. I mean, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Like,
Vince almost reminds me of the little cartoon mouse, what is it, Pinky and the Brain. Because
yeah.
tonight, Pinky, we take over the world. I feel like that's what he was telling Stephanie and, and Shane in the office. Because
Well, he told
tonight,
Shane basically the same thing. Saying when they had that argument or whatever, he was like, "You better stick it right here." He's like, and like if you can't do it, and if you can't push me out of the way, then I know that you're not man enough to run this company.
yep.
You gotta, and I mean, like he was dead serious about it. I mean, like Vince didn't play no games when it came to the business. Like, in some aspects, I think he almost loved the business more than his family, or it was his family. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think that, how do I, how do I put this question? Because it's, we've talked before about how the old territory days was ran kind of mafia style.
Yeah.
Do you think that Vince, even though he wanted world domination, okay, hold on. Let me put this in a reference you might understand. So, like, because I don't know the movie fully, I've watched a little bit of it, even though I had your DVDs for like 15 years. But so the territories were like the Corleones
Hmm.
and the other families. They just ran their territory. Kept the peace, run your territory, don't step over the lines. Vince was kind of like Scarface. He wanted to take over the world.
Well,
He didn't just want his little piece. He
yeah.
wanted yours too.
Well, I mean, like you can stick with the Godfather reference, which you went from Godfather to Scarface, but you still use Al Pacino as the example. But if you were going to use the Godfather, it'd be kind of like Vito wanted, was happy with just his little slice of the pie. When Michael took over, he wanted everything and shit, and he
Okay.
got everything. That's why he killed all the rest of the five families and shit, and pretty much consolidated his hold over the whole criminal empire. That was Vince. Vince is a Michael Corleone. He's he's that guy that wants it all and is smart enough to do it.
So let me ask you this. Just an opinion, I ain't trying to get nobody's brakes have to be checked before you leave your
Yeah.
house or nothing. But do you think there's a possibility with Vince being with the WWE at the time being based out of Stamford, Connecticut, which is so close to New York?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any possibilities that Vince may have ever had any ties to the mob?
I would say he probably knew some. I mean, because to be in that type of business and make that type of money, you're, it's just. I mean, you're going to run into some powerful people. Like you're going to run into somebody that's not exactly, very on the up and up. So I would say, yeah, he probably knows some people. He probably needed some people to make some things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes somebody wasn't doing what he wanted to. Obviously Vince wasn't opposed to having, certain guys within wrestling. So why wouldn't he be
Permits
opposed to
need to
having,
be asked.
yeah, he had the APA and shit. So, obviously I don't think out of wrestling he would be any less, you know what I'm saying? Like he probably had some people that was like, hey man, I need you to run over here and talk to this dude. He ain't trying to cooperate, he ain't trying to work with me. Just talk to him a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And by the time you get done talking, I'm pretty sure he'll be a little more convinced. So I wouldn't put it past Vince. No, not at all and stuff. Like I'm not saying that he's in bed with him and shit, but I'm saying he probably's got a couple people he knows if he had to make a phone call.
Well, being a businessman and being, you can say they're based in Stamford, Connecticut, but they're basically, everybody calls it the New York territory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but honestly and truthfully, if there is any like rubbing shoulders with anybody like that, I would 100% think that it was probably I knew them from my dad.
Yeah.
Now, his dad being involved, I could see something like that because, especially back then, to hold the territory of New York, you've got to know people, especially again back then. You got to know people, know whose palms to grease. You know what I'm saying? To get, I mean, especially when your major shows are working out of the garden. You telling me that certain organizations don't have a piece of that pie somehow, somewhat? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, there's just too much money involved, and like when there's that much money involved, the mom's going to be there, man. They're going to get
Oh
their
yeah.
cut. So, I mean, it's just that's why I would say probably not a working with them, but there's some connection and stuff. A little bit, I'd say.
I got to thinking about that whenever we were sitting there talking about that. I was like, man, I wonder, it'd be in New York, everything, Vince, and everything. But no, so I have another question for you, and I got to thinking about this while we were talking here. So Bill Watts,
Mm-hmm.
again, for all his faults and everything that are reported on, who knows? Uh, Only him and God. Uh, when with Watts having the success that he had, but again, failing to convert on the cable transition when he had the chance. Do you think that if the higher ups in WCW would have gotten out of his way when he was in charge of WCW, that he could have made it work?
I don't know. Like I said, I mean, what was the reason that they didn't make it or whatever?
I
If it was
can't.
because of his leadership or whatever, then that's probably yeah. But if it was because some outside force, like
We can always
not being able to compete with the WWE or uh, not having the television time
Why
or
did
not having the
WCW part
superstars.
ways with Bill Watts in the early 90s?
Um, so like it's kind of hard to. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, that's one of those things I really don't know. Like I said, because
Okay.
I really have to do more research on that. Because like I said, I mean, it could be all his fault for poor leadership or not knowing what he's doing or being stuck like stuck in his ways or behind in time, or it could have been that you know somebody else was just better at the job and shit, or they just had better superstars, or they were better at figuring out the TV deals or TV times and stuff like that. So.
So I just looked it up,
Mhm.
and it said WCW parted ways with Bill Watts in early 1993, primarily due to, and this is what's highlighted, intense controversy surrounding racist and offensive comments he made in a 1991 interview, which came to light and caused embarrassment to Turner Broadcasting, the parent company of WCW. His position as executive vice president became untenable, untenable, whatever that means, I guess, open, after wrestling journalist Martin Madden informed Hank Aaron, then a vice president with the Atlanta Braves, also a Turner company, about these comments. The key reason for the departure was the controversial interview. Before joining WCW, Watts told the Pro Wrestling Torch that he supported a business owner's right to discriminate and made derogatory comments about African Americans and slavery.
Oh, well, okay. Then it looks like it was his own fault there, buddy.
Right?
Uh, now maybe if he had shut the hell up, he'd been all right. But obviously, he liked to talk a little too much. So
And that's the thing, I mean, in a business like wrestling, you're not going to escape everything like that. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody you meet is going to be on the same page. Some people are going to have ignorant views like that. And, at the end of the day, that's just the cross they have to bear. I'm sorry that they do. But
and like when you're a leader of men, you know what I'm saying? Like I mean, like when you're running like a whole organization, like it's different if it's just you with your ideas or opinions saying something. But like when you're supposed to be in charge of a whole organization and you share and you share certain views, I mean, it just comes with it. I mean, there's when you got people that you got to be accountable to, and it starts affecting their profit line. Like
and
most
that,
things, you start messing
and,
with the money, you got to go.
and that's what I was going to say is, you know, you can't. You're not going to change everybody's views on stuff, unfortunately. Um, but at the end of the day, like you said, you're in charge of a locker room. You're in charge of men who are of color. So keep it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Uh, as bad as it sounds, because I don't want people like that in power over people, of color or whatever, minorities, whatever you want to call it. There's just people, but because it can set up for bad situations and stuff like that. But if you do have a position like that, then just just be fair, and you can go home and hate whoever you want to at night. You can go home and cuss at the wall that you had to give Booker T a world title shot. You can call him every name under the book, but at the end of the day, when you're at the office, be fair.
Yeah.
If he deserves the shot, he deserves the shot. And that's the thing that's like so crazy to think about, is because he did push, well, when JYD left, um, he tried to turn Butch Reed into the next JYD.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it blows my mind that if he felt that way, why would you sit and make your two biggest stars that you tried to push African Americans? The only thing I come up with is you're trying to hide something.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just sad because for all the good that Mid South did, and for all the good that Bill Watts did, again, I mean, maybe he's just another Vince. I don't know. But for all the good that, both those things did, Bill Watts and Mid South, it has to get overshadowed by stupid comments.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm let's just go further. Stupid views. But at the end of the day, you can't change everybody's mind. So let's just, if we can't stop the stupid views, let's at least stop the stupid comments. At least in public.
Well, I mean, that would be the smart alternative and shit. Like, to keep your job at least.
You would think. I mean, because I honestly, truthfully, there were a few rule things that he did as far as like when he took over in WCW that I was like kind of like, that's kind of dumb. But other than that, I think because I think eventually those rule changes would have come back. But I think as far as like I feel like WCW was getting a little bit better at that time. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like that they were starting to improve. And then, I don't know, that happened. He got fired, and then like the bottom fell out.
Mm-hmm.
And because they didn't know what to do. And that's whenever they put Bischoff in charge. But like, I don't know. I think Watts could have done something with it had he not, been a dumbass. Plain and simple. I mean, do dumb shit happens.
Exactly.
I mean, it's sad. But no, I mean, Mid South. I don't know. What's your final comments on Mid South?
Final thoughts on Mid South. I think they're an important part of wrestling history. I don't think if we had them, we wouldn't have a lot of the, especially for me, the wrestlers in the '80s and stuff that I grew up with, in WWE and WCW. So I'm just appreciated for everything. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm just glad that that they were here to like develop the talent and to bring the next generation of wrestlers and stuff. I think that you have to know your past to kind of know your future. So I think any good wrestler who really cares about the business will go back and watch like a lot of those old matches, and they'll get something from it. Like I think you can get something from almost anything, especially like if you go back, like whether it's to the psychology of wrestling, like whether it's crowd control, like whether it's moves or how to get over or how to be a heel or a baby face. So Mid South, like I said, I wish I got to see them in my prime because I really didn't. Like I said, I know more about them now just doing the research for this episode than I have. But I think I would have really enjoyed them as a child and stuff. Like I think they would have been right up there with WCW. But unfortunately, I'm like you, only had WWE and WCW. Like whatever came on in my area. So I think they're one of the foundations in wrestling, and that we should appreciate them that they have their spot. You know what I'm saying? That can't be ignored.
Thank you for the shout out, Bayway. See you too, brother. Hope everything's going good out y'all's way, man. Hope everybody's getting better after the wreck and everything, recovering and everything. Still praying for y'all, brother. But yeah, that's me, but I didn't realize that, I've always heard about Mid South Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I've always heard, Jim Ross talking about Mid South on his podcast, things of that nature and stuff like that. But I never really, got to, looking at it. Always, sir, always. No need to say thank you, man. Hope y'all are doing well. Pray for us. We got Snowmageddon going on over here. People have looted all the bread and eggs and milk from the shelves. People have lost their minds. But now, getting back to what I was saying, he sat there and I didn't realize the impact that they had on my childhood. Like I was talking about, Rick Rude. Was there any other names you didn't read off on that list?
Who, me?
Yeah, on that of the list
of shit, man. I could probably find a bunch. King Kong Bundy. People like that. Jim Cornette, Ted DiBiase. Shit. I mean, the list goes on and shit.
Duggan was another guy that they were.
Yeah, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was another one.
People don't realize when Hacksaw came to the WWF, he was supposed to get pushed to the moon, like Hogan, and he got in trouble in the WWE, which is what kind of ended his big push and everything. But that's another show all on its own. But Sheiky baby, but But I mean, at the end of the day, they've done so much, but I don't think that they get they get talked about, but I don't think that they get the recognition that they deserve. And I think some of the younger fans, some of the older fans, if you don't know about Mid South wrestling, go check out some Mid South wrestling. It's easy, like Uncle Slam said, it's easy to find it on the internet, on YouTube. I'm sure there's other places you can find it and everything too, but that you don't have to pay.
WWE still have it on their platform or not?
I am not 100% sure. I was going to check that out.
I know they did. They used to have it on their archives, but since the whole transition from ESPN, I'm not really sure if it's still there or not.
Yeah, we don't know. We're still trying to figure out what's transitioning, what's not. We don't know who's where and what's what. Up's down and left is right and all that good stuff.
I don't think they know either, honestly. Shit.
Right. Next thing I know, I'll be watching Royal Rumble at the bar eating some wings because I don't know what's going on. I don't know where to watch it at. Be cheaper that way.
Hell yeah.
Eat some wings and drink a beer and just tell them, hey, can you turn that on to the Royal Rumble? Well, I'm sure y'all get the channel, whichever one it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Y'all pay for all that pay-per-view shit.
Right. But no, Mid South, man, it was definitely worth looking into because it definitely made me realize that again, I could go over the list 400 times, but when I didn't realize how many wrestlers were like fresh in the WWE when I first started watching.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't realize that Rick Rude was just getting there. JYD was just getting there. Butch Reed was just getting there. All these people, when I seen them for the first time, it wasn't like they had been wrestling for the WWE for 2 or 3 years and I just hadn't seen them because I'm a little kid and I catch wrestling when I can, as opposed to I'm got it scheduled down. I'll be in front of my TV at 11 o'clock every Saturday morning, Hopefully you're in front of your computers or phone every Saturday morning about 11 o'clock listening to us talk. But, but yeah, it definitely impacted more than what I knew. Definitely a wake-up call. I wish that it makes I wish Watts didn't have the cloud over him that he does as far as the comments he made, because again, with the way that JR defends Bill Watts and some of the things that have been said about JR, it makes you
I know it's like, well, we see why y'all went together, y'all hanging together.
Why y'all were such good friends, It's
we see what y'all had in common.
It's like, please don't let I mean, it's one of them things you just pray it's not true, but true or not, like I said, you can't change people's minds, but I hope it's not. But I think Mid South had its run. It had a good place in history. I think Bill Watts could have done something with WCW. I didn't like some of the rule changes he did when he took over. Like not being able to come off the top rope, because if you did, it was a disqualification. And he took
that was a rule? Oh wow!
Yes, you don't remember that?
No.
I want to say that's around 1992-ish. Yeah, you couldn't come off the top rope, or it was a disqualification. He took the mats up from around the ring to where it was just solid concrete.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know this?
No. What the hell was he thinking, bro?
Yes, dude. Go look us up, man.
Oh, I gotta look this shit up now. Like, oh
look
my god,
up Bill Watts and the rule changes that he made. And hold on, let me see here. Before we take this show, What were all the rule changes Bill Watts made when he took over WCW? Let's see here. The major rule changes and policies of 1992 and 1993. No top rope moves. All moves from the top rope were banned and resulted in an immediate disqualification, famously hindering high flyers like Brian Pillman.
That's fucking stupid.
Removal of the ringside mats. To create a tougher appearance, Watts removed the padded mats from the concrete floor outside the ring. No outside brawling. Fighting outside the ring was banned to keep action in the ring. He reinstated the over-the-top rope DQ. He reinforced the rule that throwing an opponent over the top rope is a disqualification, a rule that had largely been ignored. Now, you know something funny about that? That's one rule that I didn't mind in WCW because I felt like it separated their matches from WWF's. You can't throw them over the top rope.
Yeah. I don't really like that shit too much.
You didn't like it?
No, it just seems stupid. It's like, you're disqualified.
I liked how WWF you could do it, WCW you couldn't do it. But I liked it because it was like, okay, it's still wrestling, but there's just one slight little variant in their matches. And the variant is, you can't throw somebody over the top rope unless it's a over the top rope match. I don't know. I kind of like that being a little bit of a difference between them. Let's see. His other rules were strict separation of the face and heels, enforce strict traditional face-heel separations, mandatory attendance. Wrestlers were forced to stay in the arena until the final match was over, even if they wrestled in the opening match, which I don't see how that's a problem because that's pretty much the norm. That's what everybody.
Yeah, that's standard right now. I mean, you should be watching other people to learn and kind of pick up tricks and tips and stuff. So I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, but you didn't know about all that over the top rope.
Oh God, what the hell was like? Why do you think that shit was a good idea? Was it a safety thing?
I don't know. Well, he wanted basically what it was he thought, okay, no more brawling outside. So that'll keep the action in the ring. No more mats and pads on the outside. So that'll stop them from going outside. And then 3, I guess the no coming off the top rope, which was a terrible idea because, like I said, it hindered high flyers like Bobby Eaton and Pillman and stuff like that and everything, which Eaton was able to adapt because he was, he mat wrestle too and everything. Not saying Pillman couldn't mat wrestle, but Pillman's whole gimmick was a high flyer. I mean, it was kind of in his name, Flying Brian Pillman, But so I mean, I guess that was just kind of keep it on the mat and get it back to traditional wrestling. I guess he was trying to just overhaul and just say, hey, we got to try something else because what we're doing ain't working. Let's get back to the basics. But I don't know. Some of it was kind of like, huh? Because it was weird. You'd see somebody come off the top rope and then like all of a sudden the bell would ring and I'd be like, what the hell happened? And I'd be like, oh man, that dumbass new rule.
Yeah, that's definitely some dumb shit.
Or somebody would sneak and come off the top rope and hit somebody with a knee or something like that. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad time. But yeah, go back and check some of them out, man. Some of the matches. It's between 92 and 93. Fun stuff. You got anything else about Mid-South?
I think that's it. I'm tapped out.
Yeah, Mid-South was pretty good promotion, man. It did a lot for the business. Unfortunately, it's got a dark cloud like some of the other things in the business do too. But you try to move past that, and enjoy it for what it is, and get lost in it, as Dusty Rhodes would say. But yeah, if you ain't got nothing else, I ain't got nothing else, Uncle Slam. And I guess that referee's at that 3 count, so we're gonna ring that damn bell.